I was born for this. I was born for this.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Cork'd Up. I'm Jess Kleinschmidt.
And I'm Rachel Lula. Cheers.
Rachel is disgustingly drinking wine out of a champagne glass. Rachel, you're a fucking peasant. That's disgusting. You did warn me. I will give you that. You did warn me.
My life, like I have a new set that I'm recording on or whatever.
And I will say you are at least drinking out of glass. I'm not that upset, but it's the one thing that I do get irritated with, which is perfect for our segment today because I'm irritated. Speaking of, and weirdly enough, this is our wine word, and you know what I work in. What's our wine word today, Mama?
Our wine word is media.
Weird.
Yeah.
It feels kind of hypocritical of me to be okay with this wine word, but I think this is a very good opportunity to talk about how your and my relationship works, how the media is working with everything else. Before we get to that, though, the Lindor trade, we're going to talk about that. And first and foremost, from a baseball media perspective, I saw it coming. I really, really did. We don't know if he's going to be a part of that awesome shortstop class next off season with like Corey Seager, Trevor Story. And I'm scared to even say this because people are on my ass about this Tatis information that I've leaked, but I foresee Lindor getting an extension. Before we even get into that, what are your thoughts as far as this trade, which I think is phenomenal. I think the Mets aren't fucking around, but where this trade happened in the off-season timeline?
So I think, look, the trade, if I were the Indians, I think they overplayed their hand with having Lindor. If I were them, I would have traded him earlier. I don't think they got as much as they could have. If anything, you just kind of look at, they gave up Lindor and Carlos Carrasco, who is on a very team-friendly contract. Now, he has, I would say, ace stuff. He, for various reasons, he can't always pitch all the time. But, when he's healthy and he's good and he's pitching on the mound, he's got great stuff. So the Mets got a lot and they didn't really give up much. That kind of suggests, obviously, that the Indians weren't in the best position. It's similar to, you look at the Central right now in general, a lot of teams with, Cubs giving up Darvish, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, they were even more restricted with Darvish just because of he had the no trade or a limited no trade clause. So there were only a handful of teams that he could have been traded to. So it's a weird environment for teams that need to trade away these stars. And unfortunately, I don't think most of them, as we've seen, are really getting a huge return. I'm not sure, if it's the environment, COVID-19, whatever it is, but
I feel like no matter what the environment is, there's always one team who does better than the other. And it depends on like the perspective and how you're viewing it. Because we, like, as the media, we grade some of these trades, like, hey, how was this Padres Cubs trade? Who won from that? So it depends on how you're looking at it. But yes.
But I do think it's really hard, when trades do involve like prospects. I think that's really hard to judge, even with like the Cubs trade, because
sometimes prospects don't work out.
Sometimes prospects don't work out, but sometimes also everyone's looking at it, they're like, oh, well, the Cubs didn't even get like top prospects. But if you believe that maybe they have really advanced and good analytics and their front office saw these kind of diamonds in the rough and realized, look, we can get all them, and with the staff we have and our farm system, we can develop these guys into tools, or develop their tools, develop them into weapons, then it might really pay off. But right now it might seem like, it's not like they didn't get anything. So it's hard to judge it like right off the bat. But look, anyone who's going to trade, if you're going to trade for Lindor, granted, a lot of times when trades like this happen, similar with like the Mookie Betts trade, a lot of times teams will talk with the agent about what is the likelihood if we were to go through with this that we could do an extension, because they want to know that ahead of time. And then you saw, last year with the Red Sox and the Dodgers, you saw Mookie ends up, they make that trade, and then shortly after he signs
without even playing. Fucking love it.
Yeah, but
That's
so
big dick energy.
So I'm sure there were conversations with Lindor's agent about the likelihood of signing it, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have only, if an extension doesn't get done, you have 1 year with Lindor. The reason you would trade, to get Lindor, that's a win now mentality. You want to win this year. Granted, they also got Carrasco in that trade as well, which is, great. But I think it'll be interesting to see. I know kind of from my understanding of Lindor, and I'm obviously Bauer played with him for a long time. I think there is something exciting about a big market that he likes. I'm not going to speak for him at all, but just from things that I've heard. So, maybe the Mets is kind of the place where he wants to be.
And that's what's cool about Lindor is like, there's so many layers to him. The first one is he's a good player. He's a great player. On top of that, crazy marketable guy. And I like that Cohen I feel like Cohen sees that. Steve Cohen definitely sees that. I want to ask you about this though, because there was that graphic that came out and Trevor was involved, and it was like, the Cleveland Indians have traded these guys in the last whatever years. And Bauer was there, Lindor, Cookie, all. What did that mean? Did that mean when you're on the opposite side of that, a client is part of this pool of players who is, I don't want to say constantly being traded, but like, what's that mentality? Does that mean you can kind of spin that in a good way, right? Like that means you're wanted. I had Taylor Trammell on Bach Talk recently. He's always wanted. So you can actually say that, right? Like if you're part of this constant pool of traded players, that's could be a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two ways. Look, anytime you're involved in a trade, it means that the one of the teams really wants you, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's you can have the pessimistic way of looking at it as like, I'm not wanted here and they got rid of me. And you can have the more like optimistic kind of way of looking at it as like, no, but the other team wants you. Somebody wants you. So, I think there's all of those trades in general, to me, I think they should have been done earlier.
Yeah.
People criticize the Rays. People criticize, all these teams that do.
People criticize people. Rachel, I had no idea. So weird.
It's crazy. But you criticize the Rays, like they traded Snell, but maybe they saw something. Maybe they saw something that we'll end up seeing down the road, where this was the optimal time to get the most for trading him. So it's easy to look at, when teams trade away someone you really love and you're like, that they're a great player, why would you trade them? But then also, then we always are super critical when they hold on to someone too long and they don't get enough in return. We're like, well, that was a horrible trade. And like, yeah, well, they held on to the player. And so it's a tough balance. But look, in the scheme of the off season, this is pretty standard, I think, for a lot of times in the last few years. And I think it's something that the next CBA is going to have to, I think they're going to address it. But the signings, it's not the same. The middle class seems to be kind of getting squeezed. And, obviously
squeezed.
Just they're spending less money on the middle class. It's more of you spend on the big contracts, and then the middle class, it's harder for them to sign because they would rather the middle class, or they're the free agents that aren't the top tier. And you could get basically you could get probably more or less the same level of play from guys who are younger on team controlled contracts. Right. So they're choosing those guys for cost controlled players over these middle tier free agents. And so it's harder for them to get contracts. So either way, this is, been the trend for the last couple of years. It started even when I was at the union. I remember how many like conversations with the attorneys at the union that we would have about all sorts of stuff about filing grievances with MLB. Was there collusion? Whatever it is, because of just this standstill where teams aren't signing. But you know what they were doing? They're trading, because trading doesn't cost just like ponying up money necessarily. So look, this is normal. Last year we had a bunch of big signings during winter meetings. That, to me, those kinds of things happen when you have some of the biggest market teams who want to spend money that you happen to have last year. I mean, the Yankees wanted to spend money. You had the Nationals coming off a World Series. Like, it was a perfect recipe for these teams to sign. You know, you had Strasburg, you had Cole sign in December. However, and then I also believe MLB, because the CBA was coming up and the CBA was going to be negotiated now after this next season, with the 2 previous seasons where the players and that side was getting very concerned and having a lot of issues and starting to, harbor a lot of, not resentment, but they were pissed at MLB with what was happening. I think MLB looks at it and is like, okay, CBA is coming up. We don't want the players to go in just fuming and pissed and ready to be like, you know what, we have nothing to lose. Like, we're not agreeing to anything, that kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. You would think MLB wants them to be a little more amicable and a little more cooperative going in. So to me, what I think happened is MLB kind of loosens the reins, tells the teams, kind of puts out some sort of like message, basically urging teams to, or encouraging teams to, sign players early, like get stuff done. Let's not make them freak out and wait. Whereas before, I think teams were looking at it as like, look, make them sweat, they'll drop their price. And that's ultimately what happened. But then I think MLB going into another collective bargaining, they don't want players to be too mad. So I think they were like, okay, now that we've helped keep the price down the last few years, now just sign a few early. There's some big names on the market, it's fine. Like, sign those guys, and then they'll feel a little better going into the bargaining. Obviously, you have a wrench thrown in that with COVID-19, and then we saw all the heated, emotions and the conflict between the players and MLB and the owners during the quarantine negotiations. So that just kind of like messed with everything. But now I think MLB looks at it and is probably telling teams, look, like, cry COVID-19, cry that
I was going to ask you, I feel like they're kind of,
they're trying to, they're going to,
as an excuse. I'm not saying COVID-19's bullshit. It's fucked up. But
they're playing it up. I mean, they're riding it for as much as they can. They're trying to, whether they do have the money to spend or not, or they would spend it regardless, they're going to hold on to, well, look, this is the reality. Like, we all know COVID-19 really, hurt a lot of us, so we can't spend. It's a good excuse. I'm not saying it's not a real one.
I agree.
But we don't know how, in terms of owners wanting to spend money, we don't know how much it actually like plays into it. But I think MLB is encouraging owners to milk it. That's also why I think they're not giving a lot of answers about what's happening with DH, all that kind of stuff.
And so, unfortunately, I know you wanted to make it a short show, but you made me want more questions. So there's so many things I want to touch on. So the first thing that you mentioned we're going to go back to like the Yu Darvish Blake Snell trade, because specifically Yu Darvish, there was a lot of prospects, not top 10. People were shocked that Mackenzie Gore was untouched. And you mentioned diamonds in the rough. And the reason why I got excited about that is I was thinking about Drew Smyly, specifically with the Giants before he went to the Braves. The Giants, and I'm going to shout out Matt Daniels and his, the pitching staff and, Andrew Bailey, all these guys, they saw something in Drew Smyly to turn, I think it was under $5 million contract into 2 years, 11 million, something like that. And they added velocity onto his fastball. So they saw a diamond in the rough. So what I'm saying is
There are a lot of teams that do this. I mean, the Astros are
for sure. I think I saw it specifically with the Giants. That's why I said it. But it's like you see those diamonds in the rough, and I remember writing specifically diamonds in the rough, and you'd be shocked because like the Giants, I think it was a very Farhan Zaidi mentality, flipping that like a house flip. You see that shit on HGTV. You flip it, send it off, and you make them more money. And Drew Smiley is probably happy about it. So I can talk about that. So if you think about like losing top prospects, or in your mind, a top prospect, there's still benefits to that. Lindor trade, what I wanted to ask you about, because you mentioned how trading, there's less monetary value as far as that goes, obviously. Do you think we're going to see more of that as time goes on because of the weirdness? Do you think they're going to ride more with CBA and COVID? Do you think more? I feel like we knew Lindor was going to be traded. We just knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, but
that's going to be it's going to be more before spring training starts, whenever that might be.
Yeah, because I mean, look, that's what happens always. And or in the last several years, that's what you've seen.
And that's fine. But do you think it's going to happen more because of?
No, I mean, I think it's just going to continue. Like I think the last few years is like this, it's playing out the exact same. We're seeing a bunch of, we're seeing trades be the big transactions, but there's no signings.
Yeah.
Because I think trades are, given where the CBA is at, given kind of the dynamics of how, baseball, the teams are operating now in general, it's easy. I think it's
easier.
Trading. It's easier. There's
less paperwork for a trade as opposed to a free agent signing, just paperwork wise.
I mean, it's. No,
I think about that. A lot of men are in this industry. I wonder if they're like, oh, I just don't want to do the paperwork.
Yeah.
Nah. Type of deal. You mentioned there's one thing that popped up today, and this was a certain reporter. I will not mention him, but he did call me out recently on my Tatis stuff. It's fine. So here's the thing: 162 games reportedly might happen in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you have my back with this, and I feel like you will. It's very fluid, but
MLB just said on-time spring training, like right now.
For sure. Here's the thing. That's the plan. And I've known that for a while.
Yeah.
But this report that comes out, spring training's whatever. I feel like that doesn't matter compared to the season starting. It really, I feel like it's going to be, I genuinely, from what I'm hearing, I know people are going to hate me for this. We're going to have a spring training, but I feel like we're also going to have another summer camp or some similar thing to it. Timeline wise, I have no idea because everything's so damn fluid once again. Fans wise, I don't know all that stuff. They're going to have whatever. I cannot confidently say we're going to have 162 games. I don't think we're going to have 60 games. I feel like we're at least going to have 100.
Oh, there's going to be a damn lawsuit if there are 60 games, because there's no reason. We've already proven we know how to
exactly
have a season.
Yeah. I'm just, and that's good. I'm glad you mentioned that. That's good. But this report that came out, and I really hate this because I'm already getting shit about this Tatis stuff that I've leaked. But if you look at the wording, they're saying prepare for 162 games. Jake Diekman from the A's says, just announce shit. Just tell it like it is. Whatever. Do you think we're going to have 162 games next season? And how, don't be specific with the clients, if you will. If I had you as an agent, and I have an agent, so if I were to approach them and be like, hey, should I prepare for 162 games or what's the deal? That has to be a deciding factor, right?
I'm negotiating. We're having 162 games. There's no reason that we wouldn't. There is no need for me to start going and thinking of hypothetical situations where we don't have 162. I mean, when we negotiate with teams, we're negotiating there's going to be 162 games, and that's how we're thinking about it. Okay. Now, if MLB decides and goes ahead and is like, we're going to, of course, MLB is saying, let's prepare for this because they don't want the backlash right now. But I'm sure when it comes down to it, they're going to look, if you think about it, why would the owners right now, until they can have full fans in the stands, especially with a lot of these big, you know, a lot of the teams that are on the coastal cities that have lockdown, et cetera, the owners, why would they want to have 162? Because they're going to lose money. So they're going to try to do the prorated thing. They're going to try to hold out. But but technically they can't do that, because if there isn't a national emergency, then Manfred can't suspend contracts, which means that, you know, they need to have the season go as agreed upon in the CBA. I think we figured out how to have 60 games, and that was we got restricted to 60 because of the time, because it took us that long to just start.
That's what it came down to.
But we figured out how to have a season.
Yeah.
We figured out how to have a season with during the pandemic, which means there's no reason that we shouldn't have 162 games. I'm not talking about the monetary part of it, but just the logistical part of having a season, that we should be able to have a season. And so unless they're going to be able to use the pandemic and a national emergency to suspend contracts, they're going to have to go about how they normally would. I think you have to be careful that you're not going to hurt the free agent class right now and signings, because if owners are looking at this like, you know, well, if they think in the back of their head we might not have 162 games, and that's going to affect the signings and what they want to pay, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think from that perspective. We have no idea what's going to happen, but I can easily see certain members of the commissioner's office writing COVID. We did it. We got a fucking baseball season, dude. Like, I don't understand why we can't continue it that way. And we actually set a really good precedence. I genuinely feel that. So, like, the whole thing. I'll ask you something.
Can I tell you a funny about when you said commissioner's office? It made me think of my one of the attorneys at the commissioner's office. I think I told you this, but I happened to look at on my website on my store, and I got to know this shirt. Yeah, and I saw someone. I just happened to be looking on my store. I rarely do it, and I happened to see one of the order fulfillments 2 orders down. I glanced at the name, and I was like, that name looks familiar. And I was like, it can't be. And I click on the address, and it's from the area where I know he lives. And I was like, oh my God, one of the attorneys from the commissioner's office bought a shirt. And I was like, well, that has to be done just to that's not done because he supports me. I mean, we know each other well from arbitration and stuff. So yeah. I sent him an email, a thank you for your purchase email, but clearly it was from me. And I told him, hope you thanks for the support, a winky face, hope you enjoy it for whatever the hell you're using that shirt for. And he was like, yeah, he goes, I'm going to wear it I thought it'd be perfect for arbitration this winter, in the late nights in the hotel when we're working. I was like, well, I can't be mad about free advertising, so thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I would love a Luba Sports.
But I was happy to be able to call out one of the lawyers at the commissioner's office. So.
You know what, Rach? You look so much sexier when you're drinking it out of a wine-esque glass.
Thanks.
You look like a lady, which I appreciate. We need all the help we can get. We need all the help we can get. One thing I wanted to bring up was, so Trevor put out this video about how free agency is going, basically. And obviously you got a lot of shit for it. People were just who fucking cares, Trevor? Just announce where you're going, announce what you're signing, announce all these things. And you told me this, mind you, he had facial hair, which I didn't know. Looking at Trevor, I didn't know he could actually grow facial hair. I'm just
facial hair forever.
Yeah,
not long. It's not super. It's not usually super long, but he always has facial hair.
I guess
Yeah, you didn't put it together, but
yeah, I did. I was congratulations, because you see these faces, you're he can't grow facial hair, and I thought Trevor, so good for him. And anyhow, but also it makes me feel quarantine's been it's been a long quarantine type of deal. I want to talk about that because you kind of you wanted to say well,
I called out some people, and actually, so I was talking to Bauer about it after, and I was like, I'm glad I put that tweet out, because I think what happened was it started to seem like, because, it's like the haters seem to always be the loudest, and there might not be a lot of them, but they scream the loudest because it's like on Yelp, right? If you have a great dinner and you enjoy the restaurant, you're satisfied, you tell your friends about it, but you don't go out of your way to go on Yelp usually and write a really great review. But, or maybe the first time, but you don't continue to do it, right? But the people like that have the awful experiences, the really bitter ones, the ones that are just all grumpy, they go on and they, throw a tantrum on there, and they're like, this is the worst thing ever. And so you look at the reviews and you're like, oh my God, this place must be awful. But you miss all the great reviews because like they're not going to go out of their way.
We've talked about this just with like the shit. We only remember the negative shit.
Yeah. And so what happened is, like, in the beginning, we had all these people support, like telling Trevor, this is so cool what you're doing. We love that you're giving this inside scoop. And then we've continued to do it. And there's no need for them every time to comment, right? Like that, hey, we love what you're doing. This is so great. Thanks for the inside scoop. Like they told us the first time, they continue to, like it, all of that, view it, whatever it is. But the haters, the few of them and then they make burners. And so it seems like a lot of them all of a sudden are really mad because they're like, just fucking sign already. And so it seemed like, okay, now no one wants us to talk anymore. They want us to be like the old school traditional way of just shut the hell up and make a decision. And when I put that out there, though, it was nice to see, I think at least like a lot of people that initially were like, no, like we love this. Thank you for doing it. There's always going to be the haters and the people that don't like change and they like status quo and all that, and fine. But it was a good reminder that, look, there's still people that appreciate what we're doing, but it's frustrating because Bauer's trying to give people an inside look into the process, and coming from a firsthand source, like this is the dude who we're negotiating the contract for. And instead, everyone's like, once it passed December and people now are getting antsy, which happens every year, with the exception of last year, it happens every year that it takes a long time. And if you go back, look at media reports, look at all the headlines, it's like, it's still Machado and Harper haven't signed. They didn't sign until spring training, right? You had all this talk about it. But the difference is you heard nothing from the agent or the player. And so everyone, I think for some reason, people are starting to think like, oh, Bauer's milking this. Like he knows, and he's just not telling people because he wants to ride this out. Like,
is that like the consensus that you're getting? Like he knows where he's going. He's just trying to drag it out.
Yeah, like just decide because you're having fun toying with us. And like that's you guys just clearly then have, all it makes me realize is that people have no idea how MLB, like the MLB off season goes, and
how I feel like that's a control thing. They want to be in control too. Like they just want to know, and like,
right, but this isn't the NBA. Like, and this isn't something crazy. And it's not like, if you look around too, what other free agents have signed? I think the biggest free agent signing has been James McCann, and that that's what other big signing? So nobody's signed.
I mean, I was pretty pumped for Lance Lynn, but that was a trade. That's right.
Yeah. So you look at it like, who else is signed? And then somebody said, well, the whole nobody else is signed is like a bullshit kind of response, because don't you want to be the one to set the market so that someone else doesn't sign after you?
Don't you? It's the opposite though, right? You want to wait for the person to sign.
Not necessarily, but you look around and you're like, well, okay, I'm sorry. Then you must not quite understand really have a good grasp on the market, because
it's because they fucking peaked at JV. That's their thing. Yeah.
What free agents are there who are going to sign right now and affect Bauer? Which ones? Like, I would love to know, because these guys must be, I
will say Trevor has a big effect on me. So I'm the only one.
But there are no other starting pitchers that are in Trevor's part of the market. So that's not going to matter. And so people are sitting there like, it blows my mind how many, the amount of like mansplaining that I'll get from people right now that are apparently like smarter GM, like they're smarter than the GMs. I'm confused why, if they seem to have all this knowledge and ability to value players, why aren't they working in a front office? Why aren't they an agent? Like, it's just funny because they'll sit there trying to like mansplain to me how to do my job, how to value my player, how teams are valuing. And I'm like, you're so off base right now, but
Yeah.
I can't even respond to all of them. And I
no, I mean, today literally some guy was like, you went on the radio because you like the sound of your voice. Listen, dude, I have been on the radio, I don't think I'm exaggerating, over 1,000 times. I can't stand this. And I like the sound of my voice because I'm used to it now. That's not why I go on the radio. I literally reiterated that this is a Tatis thing we'll touch on later. But like, I can't give you more information than what I reported because A, I don't know anything else. B, shut the fuck up. C, literally, and the best part was, this is my favorite part, Rachel, the radio spot I went on responded to him because I love Ben and Woods. Shout out to them. They said, don't be a dick to this guy. You know how many sports radio spots do that? Nobody. That's where Tony Gwynn Jr. works, and he's had my back with some shit before. That's a whole different thing. We've talked about it. Athletes are our allies. But what I'm saying is this guy with 79 followers, shut the fuck up. If you want to do your job, my job better than me, go do it. You'll probably be more educated than me because I don't have a college degree, but there's no way in hell you can get the same sources that I can.
Well, I would love to know I mean, I would love the followers that are much more educated than me. Maybe they're a lawyer and a doctor. I don't know.
You know what, Rach? I really have a good idea for one of our podcasts and next episodes. Have these haters be like, hey, do you want to come on Cork'd Up?
Oh, yeah, let's do it. Let's bring them on.
Tell us why you're better at our job than you.
Okay, I'm down. We'll have Will, our producer, maybe help try to line those up.
Like, because I feel like if you think you're better at my job than me, tell me how.
Right. So, but what was I going to say?
I totally went off on a tangent. I'm so sorry.
No. But
yeah, I kind of cock blocked you in a way. Sorry.
Oh, I got it. I know what I was getting. Was people are also shitting on me, and I know Bauer for, oh my God, the amount of people that went onto Bauer's Twitter and when he posted his YouTube video talking about the things that are important to him, and they shit all over him for
wanting to be happy.
What?
Wanting to be happy.
Yeah, no, but for shitting on journalists and the media. And they were like, this is their job. Why would you take it away? And I just want to make something very clear.
Well, we talked about this.
Yeah, right? but apparently it got lost on people. So we'll say it again. First of all, I mean, me personally, I think the media has a very important purpose.
And you have told me that many times. Yes.
Yeah, an important role in just the world and in baseball and all industries. And I love the media. However, there are times when the media puts out information that is just completely false. Like, you look at it and like there isn't even like a remotely true part of what they said.
You want to call out a specific person?
No, I don't. And because I think that people know. But actually, I've seen it like multiple times with multiple writers. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, I understand though. I always start to think about like, where'd you get the information from and why? Why is that information being put out? And we talk about this a lot, but like, and I tell you this a lot, you have to, because you're media, you have to go off of sources. You're not in the room firsthand. So you have to be able to deduce like who's reliable, who's not. And so I think it's always important to think about what is the motive? Why would somebody say this and what do they want to happen? And so I look at it a lot now in the media when I see a report that I'm like, wow, that wasn't even close to being true. Like, I haven't even talked to that person yet, or we haven't even communicated with that.
Even opened that text message.
Right. But or I haven't even communicated with that team yet, but why would they put this out? And then I think about it, I'm like, well, maybe this team wanted them to put it out because it would help influence something else, but everyone's angling. And so there's certain media people, and you are not one of them, who they have agendas. Not most, but like a lot of media people have agendas. And so when people sit there and they shit on Bauer for telling people what he wants, what is important, and what is important to him. And they're like, I don't trust you. Or they tell me, I don't trust you. I trust the third party source. It's like shocking to me because I'm not using the media to influence like basically to.
But like, here's the thing, because you don't need us. And we've talked about that from the beginning. You and Trevor don't need us.
Right. So I can go whatever I need. Like I do whatever influencing or strategy I have. That's all done behind closed doors. When I say something in the media, it's because I'm correcting something. Like I'm the only one aside from the teams, if they want to come on directly and say something, and or Trevor who wants to come on, who is in the room. So when I tell you something, like, I mean, if you want to believe the third party source who heard it via telephone of like this person told this person who told this person, and you don't know which person in that chain had an agenda that they were after, then that's fine. But it's just funny to me that somebody's sitting there when the person who is literally in the room, when it's the topic is literally about things they want. They tell you firsthand, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And people don't want to believe it. It's like, well, look, you're literally getting firsthand like a source right here. And so I think the problem is a lot of times, while I think media is they have a job to do, and you would like to think that they are objective and that they, make sure that all their sources are reliable. But if you go back, and I was actually talking with an MLB executive about this the other day, he was like, yeah, it's just funny because they'll put out these false narratives and it'll look really bad on the team or whatever.
So what do you consider a false narrative?
What?
What do you consider a false narrative?
False stories about how maybe something went down, how something happened, whatever it is. If I get too specific, it'll be obvious who I'm talking about, so I'm not going to. But then once the truth comes out about how something happened, no writers are held accountable for perpetuating a false story.
And it's in my defense, vice versa. When something does come to fruition, nobody's like, Jessica, you were right.
Sure.
I think it's a girl thing, but it's fine.
But either way, it's when media puts things out, to me, it's always like it's viewed as gospel. It must be right because it's the media. But there's so many times where they put stuff out and then later there's, oh, well, actually, this is kind of what happened, or this is whatever it is. And nobody goes back and says, well, how did you get that story? Why did you think this? And you put out a whole story and narrative about this, and it turns out it's completely wrong. Right. So was there some truth to it? Were you just completely going off a source that wasn't reliable? And now that's on you, I think, as a writer.
Yeah.
If you're, like you have your integrity too. You got to make sure your sources are good. And I feel like nobody holds the media accountable for that.
I agree.
Which is why I try to put out my stuff if I need to correct something.
I want you to tell the people
about our relationship.
Yes. We're married, but it's fine. Before we get in that, and here's the thing, and I'm only saying this because I'm getting so fucking mad, and I love you and I love Trevor. If one more fucking person, doesn't matter what I'm talking about, if they ask me where Trevor is going and they don't do it from like, where do you want? Because I've had fun with it, right? I've been like, oh, I would love for Trevor to come to San Francisco because I just want to hang out with him. The content would be good. And I'm having fun with that. But first of all and foremost, I will not leak where Trevor Bauer is going because first of all, and I've told you this, I don't fucking care. I want y'all to be happy. But if one more person asks me that, between me and people are saying me and Carrasco are going to announce where Trevor's going. First of all, we're not going to fucking announce it. Rachel Luba, are you going to be the person that announces it? You will, right?
This is Bauer's thing. So we'll leave it to Bauer will decide how it gets announced. That's all we know right now, or exactly.
So, and I'm only saying that because I'm getting this is no offense to you. Like, I hate when I go on and I'm taking time out of my schedule and they're like, so where is Trevor telling you that he's going to go? And I'm like, first of all, I literally told you about my journey to journalism without a college degree, college dropout, worked my ass off. And that's your fucking question. Okay. I'm just going to get that done. I also want people to know you're my relationship and the times where you've said, hey, maybe you shouldn't write that. There's one occurrence.
Let me clarify for everybody kind of where we're at. The reason that our relationship works so well is because it's based on, a friendship and a mutual love for baseball. But I think the way that we, the reason we're able to have a good relationship is because you and I don't really have a work relationship together. I don't use you as a source. You don't come to me to get inside information because, and like it does. If that's how it was, it would be really hard for us to have like a good friendship because it can be comfortable sometimes. Where it's like if I felt like you were always trying to milk me for information, like to further your career, because we all know that when writers want information because that's how they move up, that's how they get bigger, and we like to use writers at times because it helps us. But if like I think we never really had to establish it. Yeah. It was just kind of something that was understood. Like you've never put me in an uncomfortable, you've never asked me. And as a result, because I haven't wanted to ever cross that line where things start to get like that, I've never told you any like inside information about anything because I just feel like for us to be able to have the dynamic and the show that we have, we need to, like, I can't be a source for you and, vice versa.
So I want people to know, because today I sent you a screenshot. This MFer said, oh, Luba gave you false information.
I've never told you any information about nothing, not about Bauer, not about other clients. And when people, like, if I were your source, if I did give you information, the way I see it too, is people would view it as, like, how reliable is it because we know their friendship. So they're probably like, it's hard if I gave you information about that, like about anyone that I know, people would look at it and like, well, she's biased. She's not giving you objective information because she's trying to help her friend. Yeah. And so I don't want to put you in a bad position, people to second.
And you told me that.
Yeah, so like, I don't give you information. You don't ask me for information. Yeah. And I don't ever ask you to write things for me. I don't ever ask you to do anything.
And I'm glad you brought that up because there was a couple people that were like, oh, you're only writing Trevor with the Giants stuff because of your Rachel's relationship. No, honestly, minus me and Rachel's friendship, I would love for Trevor to play for the Giants. Right. That's from like a baseball fan perspective and a content perspective. Inject that content in my fucking veins, dude. I would love that.
Yeah, but there was one time, and we'll be transparent with everyone. I'll be transparent. There was one time where we ever like had a little crossover or a moment where we shared information, and that was when you were tasked with writing a story about something, and I said, and you told me about it because it related to one of my players. Yeah, and you said, Jess, all I'm going to say is like, it's probably not worth writing because unless you want to be one of the media that just puts out rumors with no real basis. Yes. And I wasn't going to tell you anything more than that, but just don't write that. Like, that's dumb. And you didn't, and we moved on and that was it. But other than that, if you ever when you talk about stuff with Bauer, it's literally out of just your pure amusement, entertainment. Yeah. Because you want Bauer to go to, the Giants or the A's or whatever it is. But I've never given you information. To be honest, look at my Twitter when it comes to Bauer to begin with. There aren't any writers I give information to because Bauer doesn't want them to. So everyone who thinks that Jess is using me as a source, you guys are silly because I don't tell her shit. And
she really doesn't. And I'm only here to be like, you good, mama?
Yeah, no, that is the extent of your involvement in my job is making sure that I'm not about to jump off a cliff because I'm frustrated. That's the extent of it. I'm curious to know how you're gonna find out or when you're gonna find out about where Bauer signs when he does, because that's we have a friendship and we have a podcast together and we give each other advice on. I tell Jess what's a good way with talking with agents.
Yeah, because I want to introduce myself to agents and she'll help me with that and we learn from each other and I think that's important. And
but we don't like use each other to benefit our careers.
Although I did tweet out that you're a shitty texter, and I stand by that.
It's true. I have how many unread texts right now?
We were
47 unread texts right now.
And I joked with Cork'd Up because I need a new camera and like a Cork'd Up like group text. I was like, hey, like I need a new camera. Mine's like falling apart. And they're like, oh, we'll ask Rachel. She has a really good one. And I was like, cool, ask her and I'll get the result and I'll get the text back in 9 hours later. I wasn't lying when I tweeted that shit out. That was a fact.
I tell, like, first of all, I will say all my clients, if it's ever like work related with a team or clients, I'm on it. But if I can tell, and I tell people that are, and like, I think I've told you and most people know, like, look, if it's important and for some reason I don't text, like, call me twice kind of thing, and I'll know. But in general, like, I respond to, if anything related to my clients or, teams, I respond to, but I don't have time to go through the rest. Like, sometimes it takes me a day or two to get back. It's never personal. It's just that if I spent all day responding to people and just having casual conversations back and forth, like, I'd get nothing done.
We get it, Rachel. You can't have casual conversations with people. But okay, so this would end up being like a short Cork'd Up but we had a lot to catch up on. We have a merch line now and people are loving it. Legitimately, Rachel, people are loving your Check Out My Curves t-shirt.
I still don't have my shirt, my design, but
I am obsessed with it. And a couple pictures you'll find out eventually when they get their stuff. One of my best friends, Evan Marshall, will be sporting a Check Out My Curves, and I'm hoping he wears it underneath his uniform. He just avoided arbitration. Congrats to him. So he has that.
Wait, what?
He avoided arbitration.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
He has to Check Out My Curves. Sure.
His wife did order it. I don't know if it's for him or for her, but either way, the Marshall family.
I'm trying to so I want to send Yasiel a shirt with the Do My Hair, drink one.
Yes.
Great hair. It's always new colors.
He doesn't have Jessica hair, but he's got good hair.
Well, it's pretty colorful though.
But it's not as good as Jess's hair.
I mean, that's true. It's like the same thing. I mean, that's why I want to give Bauer the Check Out My Curves. Like, he doesn't have curves like Rachel, but he's got like pretty good curves, on the mound. So it's like
Darvish needs it because he has like 87 pitches. So
if any players are listening to this and you would like to rock one of our shirts, whether it's the hair or the curves one, we'll be happy to send you one out.
I feel like Dalton Jeffries and Grant Holmes will happily sport from the A's side. Jesus Luzardo, if you're listening, Mike Fiers, my boys. Are they my boys? I don't know. I don't really know. We'll find out in this season. Right, let's wrap up. But yeah, like I said, we have to make sure y'all are getting all of our swag. I love our crop hoodies. I'm not just saying that.
The crop is where it's at.
Like, I love our stuff, and legitimately, Rachel,
momentum for putting that all together.
Loved it. They killed it, and I do want to make fun of myself, only because Rachel, you literally everything you do turns to gold. Because we were joking about like how great you are with like everything. And I was like, oh,
am I?
I mean, we're all kind of struggling. It's fine.
Me included, very much so.
Yeah. And we're talking about like, oh, hey, here's like, I have an idea. You did that wine thing. And I was like, cool. And those are literally Rachel's hands on the shirt. And you did an amazing job.
Tell because my hands look like children's hands apparently, which I got made fun of by a couple players who were like, your hands are so small, or like, why did you draw those hands so small on the baseball? And I was like, do your hands look bigger? And then I realized like, yeah, I was like, first of all, they're my hands. Like, I didn't have bigger hands to draw because I literally held a baseball with my painted nails. They happened to be that pink color that day. And I looked at it and drew my hands. So those are my hands. Those are my
Yeah.
nails. That's
And I have like
size of-
fingers, which is weird. So every time I would hold a ball, people are always like, that's weird. But they're not like Pedro Martinez, but like,
yeah. I mean, I have gymnast hands and I hate them.
what is gymnast hands? What is that?
Well, growing up, because we always had, our hands were all like ripped up and calloused and like bloody and disgusting
Yeah.
from bars. So I was always so embarrassed on my hands. So I've just always, I mean, they don't look like that anymore, but they're still, I don't know. In my head, like I always grew up, like my hands are
I get that. I get that. Well, cheers, mama. I love you.
Cheers. And yeah, check out our merch, guys, because it's awesome. And
It's really good merch.